Hello, I'm Eminé. I'm the editor of O Magazine. We are doing these small helpings of good stuff every day, calling them our daily doses, and we're sharing them across our social media channels. We've had some really lovely interactions, some lovely comments. Thank you so much for watching them. I'm the editor of O Mag, but I'm also a holistic therapist, and when I drew the letter H from the hat, I thought immediately that I wanted to talk about holistic living and holism, and all that really means is that everything is connected, which we know, but we sometimes forget. When we look at life as a whole, and when we consider the completeness of life, we can see that every individual is connected to another, and we can see that every single reaction and touch and response and thought and feeling and sound and all of these things are felt by others, and that no man is an island. We say that often, and it's it feels so very true now more than ever. I think what we've the way we've come together, even though we've necessarily had to be apart, physically apart, has reminded so many of us of these really profound and intimate connections that we have, not just with our immediate friends and family, but with our wider communities, with our kin, with the people who make up the counties and the towns and cities and the country as a whole that we live in, and then of course far beyond that, globally, as a global race of human beings, and we are all indebted to one another and connected to one another. And it's really made me feel very thankful for the community I have around me, for my neighbours, for being able to stay connected to my friends, for being able to continue on with the work that I love to do, because of things like this, being able to talk now to a camera in my bedroom and have this reach people far beyond this one single screen here today. And that's all part of this idea of holism, that we get to choose what we create, we get to choose what we say, the words that we share. My neighbour the other day said that when my children walk past her home, she might be having a tough day, and if my girls smile at her as they pass, she said it feels like the sun streams in through the window and all of a sudden the darkness dissipates and she feels completely different. And there are innumerable, infinite numbers of connections such as that in the way that we impact upon one another's lives, and we really do get to choose a lot more often than perhaps we fool ourselves into believing, but we really do get to choose a lot of the time what that impact will be and what we may choose to say to someone just at the time when they most need it. And understanding that even though I am just one person here today in this one room, and even though I'm apart from a lot of my family right now, understanding that we're not alone ever, understanding that every choice I make does impact on other people, impacts far more widely than the simple choice of the food I have on my table, the clothes I choose to wear. The people growing the cotton that went to make this jumper You know, were they paid fairly? What were their conditions like? You know, I know where this jumper comes from, and I know that it's a really lovely, ethical company, and that choice that I make has, I hope, positive impacts and ramifications, and there's that little domino effect always when we consider how we live holistically. You know, we understand that I use my hands as an example a lot, as hands, as another H, because my journey into holistic therapies came via my hands. I use my hands in my therapies. It's touch therapy, it's really so very important. But my hands for a very long time were really struggling. I had blisters and red rashes and really profound eczema on both hands. Couldn't sleep because of it. They were really very raw and red and sore. And of course, you know, when you have a symptom, that symptom is often treated by something that's prescribed by a doctor. You might be referred to a specialist if you're lucky, but that specialist is a specialist in just one thing. And this specialist was a specialist in, well, skin. He was a dermatologist. And at no point was anything beyond my physical skin considered. My symptom was the rash, but there was a whole catalogue of root causes and reasons beneath that symptom that weren't unearthed or explored at all. And it was only when I began to really kind of work my way down through my own life and start to question what it might have been that had led my hands to become so unhappy and sore and angry. And the language we use to describe these things is really revealing. You know, if you have a weeping rash, the idea that something's actually weeping and crying and is really sorrowful. And as a, you know, holistic therapist, we do this a lot. We think about, you know, if you say you have a really hot temper and you're hot-headed, and your skin is also hot and red a lot of the time. These two things are not disconnected in any way. So I had a weeping rash and I had really sore blisters, and my hands would throb and be red and raw, and I had to wear like cotton gloves and sort of layer them up with kind of cooling coconut oil and try and sleep, and it was really hard, and it went on for a really long time. And nothing worked. None of the creams worked, and none of the prescribed topical remedies worked. And I went through lots of natural alternatives, but everything was about me just trying to treat the symptom, you know, put stuff on the skin. And it wasn't until I really started to ask myself why my hands weren't healing that I started to consider what I was using my hands for. And at that time I was juggling way more than any one person should be juggling. And I was using my hands too much for far too many things, and I was carrying a lot, along with newborn children and lots of work piling up and many other responsibilities that I won't go into. It was a while ago. It really made me consider how connected everything is, and how that literal symptom of my hands being overwhelmed and my hands being unhappy and being unable to carry things anymore, because my hands got so bad, I actually had to stop working. I couldn't really hold a pen. I found it hard to type. I just had to get better. And actually the infection on my hands spread to other parts of my body, and you know, this was just a really simple symptom that was supposed to have been treated by a topical cream that ended up going a lot further. And for a lot of us, when our health is compromised is when we really start to, and we have no choice but to stop. We have no choice. And for me, it really helped me to understand those little connections between things that often get overlooked, and started to understand that having been overwhelmed and my mental state not having been particularly robust at that point, feeling depleted, frustrated, overwhelmed a lot of the time, my body recognised that, and my body helped me by producing a symptom which I couldn't cure, and it reminded me that my hands are not just my hands, you know, that you can't remove, we're not a collection of body parts that can be treated independently and individually, and we're not a collection of separate entities. We are, whether we like it or not, we are connected, and we owe each other, we owe one another kindness and respect, and that idea of holism that we see, you know, in our natural ecosystems and our environments, where everything grows up together and things support one another, things compete certainly, but there's a level of natural succession and order to things, which is a really sobering reminder of how natural systems of being and living might work. And yeah, so it just felt very natural to talk about holism today as a reminder to myself. And in fact, instead of the word reminder, a remembrance, and I love that idea of remembering, because of the putting together of the individual pieces, putting those pieces back together. And if you were to stumble upon a single piece of a jigsaw puzzle, perhaps having a bit of a spring clean and you dust off an old box and you just find one piece of a jigsaw puzzle, you can study that jigsaw piece for as long as you want, but you won't be able to make any sense of it. You won't be able to see the picture that it was part of. You won't be able to look down at this single, you know, irregular edged piece of cardboard with the fraction of the big picture printed upon it, and understand the whole. And that's a really honest and really simple way to make sense of where we go wrong a lot of the time, I think, in modern life, with that tunnel vision that we can possess. You know, that we have a very singular idea about how things should be, and we focus so aggressively on this one thing, this one target, this one destination. But it's not until we find all the other pieces of the puzzles, or until we step back far enough to be able to see the picture, the whole thing, and the horizon and the sky and the soil and everything that's growing within it, that we understand our place within it, and that we again feel connected to something bigger than ourselves and our own existence, our own singular individual existence. And that's when we stop seeing just the trees, you know, that idea of you can't see the wood for the trees because it's just too close and we don't have perspective on it. And it's not until we step back far enough and really get quiet enough and present enough in the moment to be able to really see what's around us and what we're part of, and remind ourselves that even though we're apart, we're not alone, that we are always part of something much bigger, part of an infinite number of incredibly intimate connections, and that is the nature of life.